April 2nd, 1972, Atlantic City, Club Harlem. The kind of place where Frank Sinatra used to eat breakfast. Packed, 600 people on a Saturday night, music playing, drinks moving, everyone dressed like money. Tyrone, known as Fat Ty Palmer, is sitting at a table near the back, bodyguards flanking him, 3 women beside him. Palmer is the biggest heroin dealer in Philadelphia. He works directly for Frank Matthews, the most powerful drug trafficker on the entire East Coast, a man moving more product than anyone in America outside of the Colombians. If you know Frank Matthews, you know Fat Ty Palmer is untouchable. A man walks toward Palmer's table, under 6 feet tall, 220 pounds, built like a fire hydrant. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't slow down. He doesn't say a word. He draws a gun and shoots Tyrone Palmer in the face. Then his men open fire on the entire club. When it's over, Palmer is dead. His bodyguard is dead. 3 women are dead. 20 people are wounded. 600 witnesses. Not one of them will ever testify. The shooter walks out, makes it to Chicago, disappears inside a Nation of Islam mosque. His name is Samuel Christian. And the message he just sent isn't for the police. It isn't for Atlantic City. It isn't even for Palmer's family. The message is for Frank Matthews. Share your money with the Black Mafia, or this happens to everyone you've ever worked with. Frank Matthews, the biggest drug dealer in America, a man your own government couldn't catch, heard that message, and he paid. 10% of everything he earned in Philadelphia handed over to a street gang that most of America had never heard of. If you've watched our video on Frank Matthews, you know the man feared nobody. He built a drug empire that stretched across the entire East Coast. He was making millions. The DEA couldn't stop him. The FBI couldn't find him. But the Philadelphia Black Mafia made him pay tribute. This is the story of the gang that terrified the most powerful drug dealer in America, the gang that hid behind God and murdered behind closed doors, and the one person, someone nobody expected, who finally brought them down. To understand why Frank Matthews agreed to pay, you need to understand the man who pulled that trigger in Club Harlem. Picture a card game, back room, Philadelphia. 1964. 6 men around a table, money in the middle. The door opens. 3 men walk in wearing stockings over their heads, guns drawn. But the players recognize the leader, even through the stocking. The build, the voice, they know exactly who this is. Samuel Christian, 25 years old, already a legend on these streets for all the wrong reasons. First arrest at 14 for armed robbery with 3 teenagers. By 20, the sheet read like a catalog of violence. Robbery, aggravated assault, illegal firearms, illegal gambling. One after another, the card game robbery goes wrong. A scuffle, guns, fire. 1 man drops dead. 3 survivors identify Christian to police. They saw him. They know him. He robbed people he knew personally, and that shows how little he feared consequences. All 3 refused to testify. One Philadelphia detective would later say it plainly, if you spot Sam Christian on the street, pull your gun immediately. Because if he sees you first and thinks you are there to arrest him, he will shoot before you finish the thought. That was the pattern. That was always the pattern. Everyone knew. Nobody talked. Therefore, in September 1968, Sam Christian built something around that silence. He gathered 14 men, with an average age of 29. Every single one had a violent criminal record. He called it the Black Mafia. Philadelphia was about to learn what that name meant. The Black Mafia's first recorded crime tells you everything. On April 19, 1969, a founding member named Nathaniel Rock and Roll Williams invited acquaintances to a dice game. Williams did not play. He left after 30 minutes. Within the hour, armed men stormed the room and robbed every player at gunpoint. Rumors spread instantly. People said Williams had set the whole thing up. Sam Christian heard the rumors, and he considered them sufficient evidence. 2 hours later, witnesses watched Williams get dragged out of a bar on 15th Avenue. The next day, he was found with 4 bullet wounds, his body in a Philadelphia suburb. Police classified it as a Black Mafia execution. They arrested one of Sam's associates. Without witnesses willing to testify, all charges were dropped. That was the formula. Rob your own. Kill anyone who steps out of line. Make sure nobody talks. But Sam Christian understood something fundamental. A gang that robs makes money. A gang that terrifies makes power. On January 4th, 1971, 8 members walked into a furniture store led by a man named Nudie Mims. 20 people were inside. Nobody resisted. It did not matter. They beat everyone, and they shot 2 of them. Then Mims did something that made the front page of every newspaper in the city. He doused the bodies with gasoline. He then lit them on fire. The take was $3,000. The store had been refusing to pay protection money for months. A month later, 2 bank robberies followed. Same method both times. Guns drawn. Employees were ordered to strip naked. They were beaten, and the robbers took the money, $122,000. Then Sam personally led 7 men into the Adelphia bar in Atlantic City. 25 customers were inside, $145,000. The reputation was earned. The fear was real. But Sam Christian wanted something no street gang had ever had, a shield that made them untouchable. And he found it in the last place anyone expected. By 1970, the criminal wing of Philadelphia's Nation of Islam had more men, more guns, and more power than the Black Mafia. Temple Number 12 had 10,000 members. A war between them would end one way. Therefore, Sam Christian did something brilliant. He did not fight them. He joined them. The Black Mafia merged with Temple Number 12. Sam had already converted to Islam in the mid-1960s. Now, he reported directly to Jeremiah Shabazz, the temple's leader, a man powerful enough to have personally recruited Muhammad Ali to the faith. This merger changed everything. The Nation of Islam's mosques became safe houses, meeting rooms, and weapons storage. When police came looking for Black Mafia members, those men were hiding behind a prayer rug in a mosque the city was too afraid to search. When Sam needed to disappear after shooting Palmer at Club Harlem, he drove to Chicago and walked into a mosque. A nationwide network of religious sanctuaries was protecting killers. Any prosecution could now be painted as racial and religious persecution. Sam's lawyers proved it immediately. 2 defendants appealed their convictions on those exact grounds. They won. When a reporter asked Shabazz about the criminals in his mosque, he said, "Some of the alleged Black Mafia members came out of my temple, but I would no more accept responsibility than the Catholic priests would accept responsibility for the Mafia." He did not deny it. He simply made it someone else's problem. A street gang wrapped in a religion, protected by politics, shielded by the fear that touching them meant a civil rights lawsuit. No one wanted that fight. Therefore, when Sam Christian walked into Club Harlem and shot Fat Ty Palmer in the face, when he sent that message to Frank Matthews, he did it knowing that nobody could touch him. Not the police, not the courts, not even the most powerful drug dealer in America. And he was right. Matthews paid. After Club Harlem, Sam's men killed 3 more of Matthews' dealers, one by one, until the math became clear. Frank Matthews agreed to pay 10% of everything he earned in Philadelphia to the Black Mafia. Think about that. Your audience knows Frank Matthews. You know what he built. A heroin empire spanning the entire East Coast, making millions every month. The DEA had an entire task force dedicated to catching him. And a Philadelphia street gang, not the Italians, not the Colombians, not the government, a group of black men from the projects made him write a check. They didn't out-deal him. They didn't out-supply him. They killed everyone around him until the message landed. But the golden pipeline didn't last. On January 5th, 1973, Matthews was arrested in Las Vegas. Bail was set at $5 million. His lawyers got it down to $100,000. Matthews posted bail, walked out of the courthouse, and vanished. He disappeared with an estimated $20 million in cash. The FBI has never found him. For over 50 years, he has been gone. With Matthews gone, the Black Mafia lost their biggest source of revenue overnight. No product, no money, no pipeline. They turned to a man named Major Coxson, a flamboyant nightclub owner, civil rights activist, and Muhammad Ali's personal friend. Coxson connected them to the Gambino crime family in New York for heroin supply. But the Matthews money had done something dangerous. It had made the Black Mafia feel invincible. And invincible men do things that cannot be undone. In late 1972, a man named Hamas Abdul Khalis wrote 50 letters to 50 Nation of Islam mosques. He called Elijah Muhammad a false prophet, a deceiver, a man who robbed his followers. One of those letters reached Temple number 12 in Philadelphia. The order came down. Khalis had to die. On January 17, 1973, 7 Black Mafia operatives loaded into 2 cars and drove to Washington, D.C. They had scouted Khalis's 3-story house on 16th Street, a house purchased for him by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the biggest star in the NBA. John Clark called ahead. He said his name was Tommy Jones. He said he wanted to buy religious pamphlets. He was told to come at 2 o'clock. 2 well-dressed men knocked on the door. Amina, Khalis's 22-year-old daughter, looked through the window and saw something that bothered her. Each man had a cigarette tucked behind his ear. Strange for Muslims. She noted it and said nothing. Her brother Dodd opened the door on a chain. He handed them a pamphlet and went to get change. When he came back, John Clark had a gun to his head. He said, "This is a stick-up." 5 more men poured in. Everyone face down, hands and feet tied. Clark sent men upstairs for the children. What happened in that house over the next hour belongs in a nightmare. Dodd was taken to the prayer room, forced to kneel, and shot 3 times in the head. 2 children were drowned in the bathtub. A 9-day-old baby was drowned in the kitchen sink. Khalis's wife, Bibi, was forced to watch. Amina was taken to a closet on the 3rd floor. They said, "You know your father wrote those letters, don't you? Don't you know he can't do anything like that?" They shot her 3 times in the head. She fell. They checked her body and fired twice more. 5 bullets into a 22-year-old woman's skull. The gun jammed. They left her for dead. But Amina Khalis was not dead. The bullets were old. They flattened on impact instead of penetrating. She was conscious, listening, hearing everything they did to the others. 7 people murdered, 2 adults, 5 children. And the target, Khalis himself, wasn't even home. They had missed him completely. The financial gain? $1,000. Split 7 ways after donating $200 to the temple, $114 each, for drowning a 9-day-old baby. Remember that number, because what Amina Khalis did next would cost the Black Mafia everything. While Amina recovered in a hospital with 5 bullet fragments in her skull, and while Kareem Abdul-Jabbar served as a pallbearer at the children's funeral, the Black Mafia operated as if nothing had happened. 5 months later, they proved they had learned nothing. Major Coxson had connected the Black Mafia to the Gambino family after Matthews vanished. But when a Gambino heroin shipment worth $1 million was stolen by two small-time criminals, the deal fell apart. The Gambinos offered Coxson $300,000 to find the thieves. Coxson subcontracted the job to the Black Mafia for $200,000. But the Black Mafia did not recover the heroin. They only found the thieves and shot them dead. The drugs were gone. The Gambinos refused to pay. Coxson had nothing to give the Black Mafia. For weeks, he scrambled across Philadelphia, begging anyone he knew for money. He knew what was coming. Early morning, June 8, 1973, 4 a.m., a black Cadillac on Barber Drive in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. A horn honked. Coxson recognized them, and he opened his front door. "Hey, Sam, come on in." Those were his last words. They bound everyone in the house with neckties, including Coxson, his companion Lois, her 17-year-old daughter Lita, her 14-year-old son Toro, and her 13-year-old son Lex. They shot them one by one in the back of the head, execution style. Coxson received 3 bullets while kneeling by his waterbed. Lita was killed. Toro survived, but was blinded in one eye. Lois survived, but was blinded completely. But 13-year-old Lex, with his hands tied behind his back and his feet bound, waited until the killers left his room. He rolled off the bed and made it to a sliding glass door. He crashed through it. Glass was everywhere. His hands were still tied. His feet were still bound. He hopped 130 feet to the neighbor's house, in the dark. When he reached the door, he could not knock. He used his head, banging against the wood until the neighbors woke up. Within days, word spread that there was a contract on Muhammad Ali's life. He lived 10 minutes away and knew too much about Coxson's business. Ali abandoned his Cherry Hill home that month and moved his family back to Chicago. The most famous man in the world fled his own house because of the Black Mafia. But the walls were closing in. Back in Washington, Amina Callas was awake and she was ready to talk. For 5 years, no witness had ever testified against the Black Mafia. Not after the Williams execution, not after the furniture store fire, not after Club Harlem, not after Coxson. Amina Callas changed that. Before the ambulance even arrived at the house on 16th Street, she told police that these were Elijah's people from Philadelphia. She gave descriptions, faces, details, and the killers had been sloppy. Near the crime scene, a suitcase contained a .38 caliber handgun, a Philadelphia Daily News, credit cards from a man the Black Mafia had robbed months earlier, a pay stub in the name of John Clark, and the credit card used to book the hotel room where the killers slept the night before. One by one, every man involved was arrested. Then James Bubbles Price, one of the 7 killers, broke. He had watched the massacre unfold. He had watched them drown the children. When investigators offered him a deal to avoid the death penalty, Price gave them a 45-page confession. Every name, every detail, every moment inside that house. In 1974, 4 of the 7 killers were sentenced to life. But Price's confession cracked more than the Hanafi case. It connected the killers to Club Harlem, to the Coxson murder, to the entire network. The wall of silence that had protected the Black Mafia for 5 years shattered because one woman refused to die and one man refused to stay quiet. That same year, police found 2 shotguns, a pistol, 25 bags of heroin, and ledgers containing the names of every businessman and banker the Black Mafia had been extorting. The DEA revealed the Black Mafia controlled more than 60% of heroin sales in Philadelphia. In September 1974, federal agents raided 21 people in a single night. The head of the DEA declared the Philadelphia Black Mafia dismantled. The gang that made Frank Matthews pay, The gang that hid behind God. The gang that murdered children for $100 each. Finished. Because a 22-year-old woman survived 5 bullets to the head and decided she would be the first person to ever testify against them. Ron Harvey died of heart failure in a prison hospital in Springfield, Missouri, in August 1977. He had received multiple life sentences for the Hanafi massacre and the Coxson murders. James Bubbles Price, the man whose confession broke the case, was shanked in prison in the fall of 1974. He was dead before he could testify again. Even from behind bars, the Black Mafia could reach you. And Sam Christian was the man who shot Fat Ty Palmer in the face, the man who made Frank Matthews pay tribute, the man whose name alone could empty a Philadelphia street. He was never convicted of murder, not one. No witness would testify against him directly. The only charge that stuck was a 1971 liquor store robbery in which a police officer was killed. He was sentenced to 20 years. He was paroled in November 1988 at age 50. He walked back onto the streets of Philadelphia, expecting to find his throne. Instead, he found teenagers. The junior Black Mafia had risen in his absence. New generation, new rules. Sam called a meeting. He tried to teach them discipline. He tried to regain control. They laughed at him. An investigator said it best. Sam wanted to teach the kids discipline, but these kids had no concept of the discipline the Black Mafia had in the 1970s. The most feared man in Philadelphia was rejected by children. In July 1990, he was arrested for possession of crack cocaine and sent back to prison. He was released in the mid-1990s. He was arrested again in 2002 for a parole violation. The man who once made the biggest drug dealer in America hand over 10% of everything was caught with a crack rock. Sam Christian died on March 6, 2016, in a nursing home. He was 76 years old, and he died alone. That same year, Nudie Mims, the man who set bodies on fire in a furniture store for $3,000, died in a Minnesota prison. He was 69. Nobody held a ceremony. Nobody lined the streets. The Black Mafia ended the way it began, in silence. Hamas Abdul Khalis never got the justice he wanted. In March 1977, he led armed Hanafi Muslims into 3 government buildings in Washington, D.C. 149 hostages, 39 hours. One demand: give me the men who murdered my family. The demand was not met. Khalis was sentenced to 40 years. He died behind bars in 2003. Amina Khalis, the woman who survived 5 bullets, who identified the killers, and who broke the code of silence, suffered irreparable psychological trauma. When prosecutors needed her to testify again in a later trial, she could not do it. The court ruled it highly probable that testifying would cause her psychiatric injury. She had given everything, and it cost her everything in return. For 5 years, the Black Mafia operated in plain sight. Everyone knew. Neighbors saw the murders. Bar patrons watched the executions. 600 people were in Club Harlem when Sam Christian shot Fat Ty Palmer in the face. Nobody said a word. Speaking up did not mean justice. It meant becoming the next body in a Philadelphia suburb with 4 bullet wounds and no witnesses. It took a woman who had already lost everything: her brother, her nieces, her nephews, a 9-day-old baby drowned in a kitchen sink, to break that silence. Because when you have watched your family die in front of you, there is nothing left for them to take. They shot Amina Khalis 5 times in the head. She lived. She talked. And the gang that made even Frank Matthews pay could not survive a single person who refused to stay quiet.